Hello again and welcome. I'm Patrick Jaguar, the Cosmic Alchemist. In this video I want to get into some current events. I'm going to do a little series here about different current events that have been popping up. And really, where this stuff is coming from, this last eclipse season we just had. So on July 2nd, solar eclipse in Gemini, and then the July 16th, lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. This eclipse season is really delivered for us. So every time you have these eclipses, the solar and the lunar always happen 2 weeks apart, but they happen inside a 6-week period that we refer to as eclipse season. And the whole thing with eclipses is we call it the darkening of the light. So the idea is that, on a very literal physical level, the sun and the moon, the luminaries in the sky are darkened. But on the level of our consciousness, what happens is that we're forced to deal with things that we didn't see before. Either we were denying things, we weren't paying attention, or things were hidden from us. So these shocking, startling things come out of the dark, and it just forces us to basically deal with reality. So, great eclipse season. All kinds of things have been coming out into the news and into the the collective consciousness here. So what I really wanted to get into today is the whole Jeffrey Epstein scandal, that whole case, because what this is really doing is it's helping us to cut down some of our assumptions here. So, and this is really important because that solar eclipse happened in Gemini, which is the opposite sign from Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the sign of our worldviews, our belief systems, our philosophies, even religion. And then the lunar eclipse 2 weeks later happened right in Sagittarius. So what we're being shown here is we're being forced to deal with what we believe and what we've been in denial about what we believe and what we haven't been paying attention to around what we believe and what has been hidden from us about what we believe. So, and at the core of all of our worldviews and belief systems and philosophies are assumptions. So assumptions they're basically givens. They're things that we take for granted so that we can build, more complex belief systems on top of them. So assumptions on their own are not bad things, but when assumptions get pathological, it's when we don't allow ourselves or other people to question our assumptions. So then they become religious dogmas, and really, anything can become a religion. Politics is one of the religions of the modern day, I'd say, along with academia, and science. A lot of people don't go to church anymore, but they hang on every word of their favorite politicians and their favorite, scientists and academics. Entertainment, Hollywood's a religion. Money, the way people treat their kids, when, I call it child worship, when people they're always manicuring their kids and putting them out for public presentation. Money's a religion, materialism. So, whatever you put your belief and your attention into can become your God. So really the powerful, prominent people in our world are gods to us, because we hang on their every word, and we put them beyond reproach, and we put them up on pedestals. So that's something that this whole Epstein thing is teaching us, it's teaching us that just because people live these picture perfect lives where they're wealthy and they have houses all over the place full of expensive crap and a bunch of European cars, and they hang out with celebrities, doesn't mean they're good people. But that's an assumption that we've been carrying for a long time. Especially we're coming to the end of the age of Pisces, and the age of Pisces is haves and have-nots. There's only so many haves in this world. So the rest of us who are have-nots, what we end up doing is we find ways to suck up to the haves of this world and to get close to them, and to work as closely with them as possible so that we can get admiration from our friends and families. And this has to end. because we're allowing a small group of people to just run the world amok. And everybody has, everybody has their favorite, political leaders and, leaders everywhere, business leaders, people in entertainment. We all pick our favorite ones who we think are just great people and who are beyond reproach. But that's just not true. And so all this Jeffrey Epstein business is really helping us to understand this. So if you're not familiar with the whole thing, let's get into his story. I don't want to be too long-winded about it. But Jeffrey Epstein was, there's some questions. Some people question, did he commit suicide? Was he murdered? Is he still alive? We can get into that later. But the whole point here, Jeffrey Epstein, his possessions altogether, or his assets were something like $500 million. Extremely wealthy. I don't like to say someone is worth so many dollars because that's a loaded word. And basically, what you're saying is that somebody with more stuff is worth more than another person. I don't buy that. And that's another thing too with this whole age of Pisces, with this last 2,000 years we've come out of. We have problems with self-worth. We have a lot of problems with genuine self-esteem and self-worth. Every 4 years we fight about who's going to boss us around for the next 4 years, and with these elections, and those of us who are not, wealthy and powerful have real problems with groveling to people that we like. So, and that's another big theme here is that, when it comes to manipulation, the people who can successfully manipulate us, or that we can successfully manipulate on the other side of the coin, but people who can successfully manipulate us are people that we like and that we love, people we have positive feelings about. When you think someone's an asshole and a horrible person, this and that, they can't manipulate you. There's zero value for that. But it's the people you have positive feelings about who manipulate you, And then there's a whole thing too where people say, well, that person can't manipulate me, but they can manipulate all those stupid people who believe them. Well, that has to do with the type of narcissism that we all have, but that's a whole other video. So what this is bringing to our attention is that very powerful, successful, manipulative people have been taking us for a ride for a very long time. So this whole Jeffrey Epstein case is highlighting this for us, and we need to pay attention. And we can't just turn this into a whodunit, because one group of people just wants to say this is a simple open and shut, blame Donald Trump, and let's get this over with. And then the other group says this is a simple open and shut, let's blame the Clintons and get this over with. It's like, well, it's not that simple, because Jeffrey Epstein on more than one occasion said he counted both of those people as his friends, so Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. And it's pretty rare that let's say Jeffrey Epstein absolutely hated one of those people, Donald Trump or Bill Clinton, but he still hung out with both. That's pretty disingenuous friendship. So what does that say about Donald Trump or Bill Clinton if you like either one of them? But I think he was friends with them both because, there really is no difference between Democrats and Republicans. It's all a big media show, and it's all about their media portrayals. And that's what happens is we get infatuated and we fall in love with the media portrayals of powerful and famous people that we like. Because most of us don't know these people, but we take the media at face value because we think it's telling us the truth. I would strongly suggest to you that you reconsider that idea, because the media is in power the media is in business to make money. We have this whole thing about the First Amendment, and the First Amendment guarantees that we have access to the press and unbiased information. Well, that's idealism. We need the First Amendment, but just because it says that in the Constitution doesn't mean people follow it. That's naive. So let's get into Jeffrey Epstein and his whole story and who he was and what he got up to. So, like I said, he was a financier. He worked in finance, investment banking. Got very wealthy, amassed $500 million in assets. But over the years, going back about 45 years, he's had this track record of being a sexual predator in one way, shape, or form. The earliest we see it is that he was a teacher, when he was in his early 20s, he was a teacher at the Dalton School in New York City. It was a boarding school, prep school, a private high school, for, children of wealthy and elite people. Oddly enough, the headmaster of the school was one Mr. Barr, father of the Attorney General right now. And but anyway, there were allegations from back then, back in the mid-'70s at the Dalton School, that Jeffrey Epstein was having inappropriate sexual relationships with these high school students. So it all started back then. And then, and that's something that goes on in that world. I went to a similar type of a high school in Connecticut. I still get the alumni mail for them. Within the last couple of years, a new headmaster came in and took the place of the headmaster that had been there for, 20 years at least, 25 years. And just kind of a point of reference, a headmaster is basically like a principal, like a high school principal, but the headmaster has other duties too, where he raises funds. He kind of goes and, flies around the country and around the world and, schmoozes with alumni and gets them to donate money. So this former headmaster, where I went to high school, was investigated. So the new headmaster came in, heard all these rumors about sexual misconduct that was being covered up, and he spent a lot of money, probably millions of dollars, paying a big law firm to do an investigation. And it came out that the former headmaster knew about inappropriate sexual relationships between teachers and students, and he was covering it up. And when these teachers would leave, he would give them letters of reference, letters of recommendation. And on top of it, when I was going to high school there, we all knew it. We knew what teachers were fooling around with what students. It wasn't a big mystery. It wasn't like this thing going on under a cloak of darkness, because there were like 300 students there. It was no mystery. But people turn a blind eye, because the school is so prestigious. It's so elite. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to rock the boat and ruin it. So anyway, Jeffrey Epstein went on to work in banking and finance. He went to work for Bear Stearns. By the time he was 27, he was a limited partner. He was a financial strategist, the money manager. And when he was there was a funny thing. Cosmopolitan magazine ran an article about him in 1980, and it featured him, and it was saying, "Ladies, this is Jeffrey Epstein, who's a partner at Bear Stearns, and he only talks to millionaires. He only deals with millionaires." And it goes on. If you're a cute girl in Texas, send him a letter and your photo to such and such an address, which was his office. So basically, Cosmo was putting out a casting call so that young women could audition to be this guy's plaything, or his friends with bennies, or his girlfriend, or his wife, or whatever the hell he was going to do. So that's a window into these assumptions, into just assuming that people with money and prestige are just great people. The article said nothing about what a great guy he is, what great character that he has. Does he do the right thing when no one's looking, when he has an opportunity to exploit someone? Mention nothing about that. Just mention how loaded he was, and he only talks to millionaires. So, the whole era of gold digging we went through, the American dream, that was based on this assumption that when you have the education and the house full of the expensive crap and the European cars, that, you're doing great and you're happy and you're a great person. And people who have that stuff are great people. So after that, he worked for different hedge funds and, money manager. working the whole world of finance and investment. He got dismissed from different places. And so, by the end of the 90s, he was really amassing his fortune. And so he had one of the largest mansions in New York City, in Manhattan. He had a private island down in the Virgin Islands. People called it Little St. Jeff. The locals called it Orgy Island, Pedophile Island. And in the 90s, journalists used to go to his house to meet with him, to interview him. And, when they walked through his front door and they were greeted by the butler, one of the first questions was the butler would ask, "Would you like an intimate massage?" So it's kind of a red flag right there. And, people used to go to his house to have business meetings with him, and, he'd meet with them in his pajamas. And then on the way out, there'd be these underage, teenage girls in the foyer, and people would be like, "What the hell is this all about?" So, the weirdness really kicked into high gear in the late 90s. So, and by the late 90s, he had this who's who list of his friends. And, he was just hanging out with all these famous, well-known people. He was friends with Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, son of Queen Elizabeth, Harvey Weinstein, surprise, surprise. Stephen Hawking went to his party. Naomi Campbell. Then Leslie Wexner, so owner of the limited brand, Victoria's Secret, and they had a little agreement where Jeffrey Epstein got to run the casting couch. So these aspiring Victoria's Secret models were sent to Epstein by Wexner. And, Epstein would basically say, "Well, I can make sure you get a job as a model, but you're gonna have to do something for me." So, they were sort of coerced into, having sex with him. So in his friend list, it goes on and on. Just so many well-known people were hanging out with this guy. And they're from all sides of the political spectrum. One of the ones too was Ehud Barak, who, a former prime minister of Israel, used to crash at his house along with his security detail. So this guy was rubbing elbows with so many famous people, and he counted both, again, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton as his friends. And, he's called Bill Clinton the greatest politician, who's ever lived. So, nobody's going to get their smug victory out of this, because he was friends with people from every political affiliation. You can't just blame one of them. So, and then with the private island, the locals used to, down in St. Thomas, where the airport is in the U.S. Virgin Islands, they used to see, young girls getting off his plane, and his plane was called the Lolita Express. So if you're not familiar, Lolita was a novel in a Stanley Kubrick film about an older guy that had a taste for underage women. So this guy was pretty flagrant and brazen about this whole thing. So, and then, the island had the house, it had a little compound, and up the hill it had this temple-looking building, with like subterranean rooms and chambers under it. So, really weird guy. So, he became a registered sex offender in 2006 because, he's got a place down in, Palm Beach, down near Mar-a-Lago. And what he used to do down there was he used to comb the trailer parks and the malls looking for, underage girls to come and, massage him and service him. And so at one point, he got one of his associates, who was a young woman, to go recruit a 14-year-old girl to come strip for him and give him a massage. And so she did it. He paid her like $300, and then her mom found out. So her mom reported this to the authorities, and he got arrested, and he was facing some federal charges. So then he copped to, they did a plea deal where he copped to 2 prostitution charges, because he'd been doing this with a lot of people. So he copped to 2 prostitution charges, and the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida at the time was Alex Acosta, who recently stepped down as he resigned from being the the U.S. Labor Secretary. So I think he was sentenced to something like 13 months in jail. He served 9 of them, 9 months, and then he went out and, out into the world as a registered sex offender. When Alex Acosta was asked why was he given such lenient treatment, Alex Acosta said, well, I was told on good authority that he belonged to the intelligence community and that he was an intelligence asset. So that puts a whole different light on this whole case and shows it from a whole different angle. So something that intelligence services do since the beginning of time in every country, no matter who's president, is that they run honey traps and they run honeypots. So in the intelligence community, blackmail is a huge business, and the lines between intelligence services and organized crime and, and even big business, and multinational corporations, they get very blurred. They all use blackmail and they all have common causes and they all have, common, money-making schemes together. So, blackmail is an age-old tool. So what a honey trap is it's when you lure someone in to have sex with someone that they shouldn't. So you lure someone in, man or woman, to have sex with someone who's either underage, or you lure a married person in to have sex with someone they're not married to. And you either want this to be witnessed or you want it to be, video and audio recorded or photographed. The evidence is really the thing. Once you have this evidence, once you have this blackmail, you can manipulate people into doing things they wouldn't normally do. And that's the value of it. And, those are just intelligence services. That's what they get up to. It's dirty business. It's not like all romantic like the James Bond and the Jean Le Carré movies, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's a dirty business. I've known some people who, have worked in the whole counterterrorism side of the intelligence community, even Central Intelligence. And, in that part of the house, there's a lot of good people, but that's a sideshow, that sort of, that kind of, I think that distracts the good people by making them go chase the bad guys. And, but the bread and butter of it, the day to day, they do a lot of dirty shit, and it's really, it's kind of a backstabbers club, and people are ready to throw each other under the bus, and they undermine each other, and it's not a very positive place to work. There's a statistic that of the employees of Central Intelligence that work in the Washington D.C. capital region, there's something like 30 or 40% that are psychiatric outpatients, so it takes a hell of a toll on you. So, this guy was involved in some dirty stuff. So when, you see a guy who, a U.S. attorney says that he's been told that Epstein was an intelligence community asset, and then he's having all these sex parties, and he's human trafficking young girls, and he's recruiting underage girls to come in and do inappropriate sexual things. Then you start thinking, yeah, this guy probably is working for the intelligence community, because intelligence services have partners that are not directly employed by them, but do services for them, and they work with people. When they want to create blackmail, they work with people, because certain people can basically set up the party where someone's going to be blackmailed. They create the fun, they create the party where the blackmail is going to go down. So, and when people look at Epstein's finances and his income and how he made his money, they can't figure out how he got so wealthy so quickly through legitimate means. So it looks very plausible that he was running honey traps, and even too, his brother has a bunch of wealth that people really can't explain. So getting really interesting. Now, someone who was even his girlfriend was part of this too. His girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell was she's a British socialite and heiress. Her father was Robert Maxwell. He had a whole publishing empire in the United Kingdom. he was disgraced. He was stealing from his company's pension fund, and it even came out too that he was spying for Israeli intelligence, and that even he was a double agent between them and the Soviets, back during the Cold War. So she kind of married her father. Since she broke up with Epstein, she's been kind of playing musical billionaire beds, keeps dating these tech CEOs. And she's currently whereabouts unknown. Federal authorities have a lot of questions for her. She was kind of Epstein's madam and his pimp. She would go find him young girls and underage girls, and she would even train them how to please Epstein sexually, teach them what he liked and how to do it. So a lot of weirdness here. And Epstein was, on one hand, he was stringing her along. I think her friends say that she thought if she just did one more thing for him, she'd please him and he'd marry her, which, he had no intention to do. The guy was a sex addict. Even his girlfriend said that he had to have like 7 orgasms a day. So, he had a problem. He had an addiction. So she's, but she was complicit in this whole thing because she's going out and finding these girls for him. So a really big theme through this whole thing is that, men do terrible, inappropriate things to women sometimes, but women also pimp other women and they enable these men. So, women are no more blameless than men are. And, they're not, they're not holy creatures who are blameless, who've never, done anything wrong to their own. They need, a lot of women need to stop enabling guys like this. So, moving on, July 2019, Epstein got arrested because, more young women, have been coming forward and reporting him. So he got arrested for, for things like statutory rape, sex trafficking, you name it, just really, really low, dirty stuff. So he went to the MCC in Manhattan, the Metropolitan Correctional Center. It's a very small lockup in New York City. Not a huge jail, very small, very full of cameras. Now, probably about 3 weeks ago, there was a reported suicide attempt where Epstein was trying to hang himself. So they put him on suicide watch for 2 weeks. He comes off suicide watch, and and all through that period of time, he's telling people that people are trying to kill him. And this is a thing that goes on in jail with high profile cases. I know police, detectives, lawyers who've worked in internal affairs. They've worked for cities, counties, states. And, they'll tell you that when there's a big drug case about to go down, key witnesses in drug cases die a lot in jail. It's a thing that happens because a lot of picture perfect, successful people who look legitimate invest in the drug trade. So that's a thing that's been going on in jail, for all time, is when someone powerful is in jeopardy of getting into legal trouble, then the witness, disappears. They leave this world. So, people are trying to come out and say that, oh, this is just like Putin's Russia, where somebody who can incriminate Putin dies in jail. This is what happens in jail. When somebody can dime out powerful people, they don't stay around in this world too long. I've been saying it to people. When Epstein got arrested, I was like, this guy's in danger. He doesn't have long to live. This is going to be a case of dead men tell no tales. So within the last week, it was reported that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, but this is dubious. I think most likely he was murdered. They say that he hung himself in his cell. Well, people familiar with this facility say, well, there's no light fixtures, there are no bars, nothing to hang yourself from. And this guy was 6 feet tall. So to hang himself, he would have had to put a sheet around his neck and then basically kneel and strangle himself. And that takes some serious motivation. And then people also familiar with the facility have said that the bed sheets are basically they're paper thin, you know, and they tear very easily. So not a good news. And then the thing through all this too is that this place is full of cameras and there was no video footage of either the suicide attempt or the suicide. So this guy was most likely murdered, you know, because, you know, again, dead men tell no tales. He knows a lot about powerful people that they don't want to have exposed. So another important detail here about Epstein's death was that, you know, just today they've released some details about the autopsy. And so, you know, what they're saying is that he has broken bones in his neck. So the way he hanged himself, he wouldn't have been able to break his neck with a flimsy bed sheet and with, you know, a low ceiling that was maybe, you know, 7.5 feet high, you know, 8 feet high. When someone hangs to break their neck, they have to fall. They have to fall a distance. Otherwise, they just get strangled. So their neck doesn't break and they asphyxiate. So for the autopsy to say that he has broken bones, someone would have to gone in there, break his neck for him, and then tie a bed sheet around his neck so that, you know, and you know, kind of hang him in that kneeling position so he could be found like that. Because you're not, unless you have unbelievably severe osteoporosis, you're not gonna break your neck by tying a sheet around your neck and, you know, strangling yourself in a kneeling position. So this whole thing's fishy. And then on top of this, with the autopsy, this celebrity pathologist who used to be a New York City medical examiner, is Michael Baden, whatever the hell it is. He's worked on some famous cases. So he looked at the whole OJ thing and said, you know, there was nothing fishy about the whole OJ Simpson thing, you know, and the whole bloody glove and the whole bit. And then back in the I think it was 1977, the Congress had the Intelligence Committee on assassinations. So Congress investigated CIA's activity around assassinations, and they took another look at the JFK case. And, you know, the committee they basically found CIA liable for it, that they had a heavy amount of involvement in it. But this Michael Baden looked at the whole magic bullet theory, where a bullet, when Kennedy was riding in a limousine in Dallas, he had a bullet go in his back, come out the bottom of his neck. The bullet went into the back of the governor of Texas, Governor Connolly, into his back, out his chest, through his wrist, and through his leg. So, and then with this whole magic bullet theory, not only, the bullet didn't only go through Kennedy and go through the governor of Texas 3 times, but the bullet took these magical, wild, midair turns. So to have this Michael Baden brought in, it's fishy, because this guy is, you know, in my opinion, he's part of the whole cover-up program. You know, and that's the thing too, is the FBI has been, you know, a lot of evidence suggests that they have sat on evidence and they've kind of helped, you know, cover things up. So over the years. So, you know, I hope the real story sees the light of day, but, you know, you got some suspicious characters lurking around, you know, and I think people in power want the American public to just see this as an open and shut case, and it's like, well, he killed himself. We can't pursue an investigation. Oh, too bad. But the encouraging thing here is that people of all, you know, political orientations right now are questioning this whole thing, and they think it looks fishy. So I count that as a positive. Some people think that he was removed and put into like a witness protection program. It's certainly possible, and I won't rule that out, but I don't really, I'm not 100% behind that, because I don't think as a society we're there where, you know, the FBI is going to grab him and get all the information out of him, and they're going to go arrest 10,000 pedophiles, because pedophilia is an organized phenomenon. there have been retired FBI agents who go and investigate it, and they find that there are massive pedophile networks in this country, in the U.S., and all over the world. And it's something that gets hushed up. So I don't think we're there as a society where we're going to go arrest all the powerful pedophiles. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But I think we have more learning to do before we get there. So we'll see what happens. If he is alive, he's never coming back out into the public eye. They're not going to do the big pedophile takedown and roll him out and say, oh, we were just kidding. He's really alive. He'll live on a U.S. military base in like Diego Garcia or Guam or, someplace. They'll give him a nice little house on the base, and he'll live in custody for the rest of his life. If in fact he is alive, I think he's dead. You get involved in the intelligence community and, you're expendable. I mean, same in the military too, you're expendable. If there's a vested interest in making you go away, people will do that. So, it's not, people just, they hear about military or the intelligence community and they're like, God bless those brave boys. It's like, there's more to it than that. There's every kind of person working for these organizations, and especially the intelligence community, they have a way of attracting unsavory types. It's proven through psychology and through studies that positions of power attract sociopaths and narcissists. So narcissists and sociopaths congregate in certain organizations and in certain career fields. It's just the way it is. So anyway, Jeffrey Epstein is out of the public light one way or the other. Ghislaine Maxwell can't be found right now. She's living overseas, or there's a rumor she's hiding out just north of Boston and Manchester by the sea. Who knows? But people have a lot of questions for her, and we really need to demand that this becomes a full-on investigation. People get to the bottom of this, because pedophilia, sex abuse, it's an organized thing in this world, and people in positions of power have a way of finding their way into it and participating in it. So, and this Jeffrey Epstein thing, this whole scandal used to be a subject of tinfoil hattery. People used to say, when someone said, yeah, elite people have these sex parties and where they have sex with, young girls who've been trafficked, and coerced, people used to say, oh, that's conspiracy theory nonsense. Well, we got one right on our laps here, whether we like it or not. And everybody's darling politicians and celebrities are wrapped up in it. And like I said, even if Bill Clinton or Donald Trump didn't have sex with any of these underage girls, well, the point is, Jeffrey Epstein counted them both as his friends, and they both knew about this. So they're complicit to a much lesser degree. They didn't do anything about it when they knew about it. And people in government, wealthy people, once you're like a billionaire, it's a very small circle of people. They know about each other. They know what they get up to. People in government, they know what the others get up to. It's a very, and the whole two-party thing it's entertainment. It's just entertainment. It's false opposition. They're not really enemies, but they make us feel important by, joining their fight. That's the attraction. So, makes us feel kind of heroic. So, we need to look into this, and we need to get to the bottom of it and see who was involved in this. So, again, this is demolishing these assumptions that just because someone's famous, someone is in a position of power, someone has a great education, someone has a bunch of houses full of expensive crap, someone has a collection of European cars, doesn't mean they're good people. So, we got to get the American dreaminess out of our eyes, where, we see some VIP. I hate that term VIP, because, nobody's more important than anyone. They're just more important to the money-making. One person may be more important to the money-making machine than another person, but no one's important. No human being is more important than another one. So that's narcissism. That's our collective narcissism talking. So, and our self-importance. So, nobody's beyond reproach, and we can't look at people's picture perfect lives and their fame and their wealth and their educations. We can't, or the uniforms they may wear. We can't just look at that stuff and just write them off as good people. And, oh yeah, that guy's good. Yeah, that woman's good. Yeah, she's part of X, Y, and Z. She went to school at this place. She works for these people. Yeah, no problem. The whole point here is that we need to value things differently. We need to value people differently. We need to value ourselves differently. Your worth as a person is about, as a human being, is about how you treat people and what you do when people are not looking, and you could get away with things. You could exploit someone, but instead you do the right thing. That's what makes you worth something. $500 million doesn't make you worth something. So we need to get this shit out of our heads, because it's running the whole world amok. It's running our societies amok, our financial institutions amok. It's destroying the environment. It's leading us to the brink of war. It's just no good. So many things are based. And this is like the Catholic Church abuse, where people put these priests on pedestals and basically served up their children to them unwittingly. And when the children got molested, they'd hush it, because, well, don't rock the boat and ruin the church for everyone. So we need to get this shit out of our heads. So I'm going to leave it at that. I've been going on for a long time. If you like this video, give it a like. Give my channel a subscribe. My website is thecosmicalchemist.com. You can book a Vedic astrology reading with me. I can show you how the astrology of the day, of the current events, affects you specifically. We can do rune readings. I read runes. And then I have some videos for sale for download, some Qigong videos. So Qigong is a mind-body practice that helps you to tap into your subconscious mind and help you make positive changes. So it gets you out of your head. And we need to get out of our heads. Our heads are serious problems. They make us sick, and they lead us in the wrong directions. Our heads make us put people on pedestals who shouldn't be on them. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll be talking to you soon. Have a good one.